Hello to everybody. We want to start our webinar with the MBH advocates and legal consultants. We will be discussing legal actions during the virus and now ongoing quarantine with COVID-19. We prepared a short presentation and we will concentrate on a couple of important topics today. I will give you an agenda, and also meanwhile I want to engage everybody and to ask you to share your questions. I will give you an opportunity just to share a question anytime you want, but I will answer it after a short, let's say, break after first section, then we'll continue for another section. We prepared handouts for you, so each of attendee will be able to get a handout upon the webinar if you want just to get this information and check it after whenever you would like. So I will start sharing a screen. If anybody of you is not able to see something or have difficulties with the sound, with the camera, please just let me know. Also, I see almost all of you are on mute regime. If you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead, but I will ask just as we have a lot of people, I will ask just to drop a message so I can read it and we can discuss it. I start sharing a screen right now with the details. I hope it's visible for you. I hope each of you can see it. Can you see a screen? Can somebody just drop a message if he is able to see a screen with the presentation? Somebody of attendees, please. Are you able to see a screen? Are you able to see the presentation? Everybody is silent, so I hope you can all see it. Anyway, upon the webinar, we will share it to everybody. I will just briefly give you an agenda, topics, what we are going to discuss today. So we want to concentrate on three main subjects. First of all, we want to discuss protection of rights during COVID, and also what are the weak parts for the individuals and the companies, what major problems you might face during the virus, both for private people and also for the companies. Also, the second section is the legal procedure to complain, register a case, start the case, what is the procedure for court hearing, is there any impact on the court procedure right now because of the virus, what is the implementation and what are the changes. Also, the third section, we want to make a conclusion and to finalize what will be the future protection upon the quarantine, what is the possibility, and if there is any possibility to prevent claim, to secure your rights, of course, also both for individuals and for companies. So we have plenty of information to share with you. So if anybody want to ask a question, want to share some information that he is facing in his private relationship or maybe in the company, please go ahead, drop a message. All of your messages will reach us and we will be able to check it. So this information is presented mostly to look at the circumstances of the virus, the influence of the right for the people, for the companies, their business. Also, what are the latest changes and implementation measures to protect the right? If there is any insurance for the consumers in their right and possible breach, what is the procedure to register the cases, for example, in the local courts, such as Dubai courts, dispute resolution centers, arbitration, if this procedure changed or no. Also, what is the important things to do to secure the rights for future. I am changing the slide. I still hope each of you can see it. sorry. So we just wanted to differentiate for you, as we have a lot of rights, and they are a little bit different for the individuals and for the businesses, to make a huge scope and to finalize the system depends on the type of relationship. So we can say that we have a federal level and we have a local level. Also, we have public relationship, we have private relationship, and we have business relationship. So the important part right now in the public sector is, of course, security and safety. And here we face that a lot of things changed in regards of the fines and also some preventive measures such as deportation. This is something new and something really important during the virus that we want to discuss. Immigration, it's a huge part, and we will not stop on this because I'm sure that you are all aware about immigration procedure. However, this sector is really weak because a lot of people, they face inconvenience, they face questions, they face a lot of difficulties with the visa and possible overstay or any kind of breach in the immigration law. If we're talking about the private relationship, this sector is really huge. We can see here civil relationship, labor relationship, rent, criminal, family. We will concentrate briefly on all of these parts in the next slide. But I just want to make a conclusion for you that in this parts we will be discussing, for example, in the civil rights, debts, loan, in the contract, we can say, for example, real estate sector is really influenced right now. Labor things, I'm sure all of you are aware that this type face a lot of changes and also a lot of questions because people are asking and they're confused how to secure their rights, both if on the side of the employee or employer. About the rent, we can differentiate tenancy and lease relationship. Criminal part is still here and it's still active, and it's really also like very important, and it continues to be present. If we're talking about the business, we will concentrate on the contracts and possible breach, because this part is really highly important if we are talking about the business sector. So coming to the next slide, I still hope you can see it and you can see the screen. So we have civil rights, we have here contracts, and we have here real estate. So this is the subject for this slide. So civil rights, you know, what we can differentiate and what we can advise about civil rights and civil obligations, for example, debts or any civil kind of a civil relationship. We are now talking about individuals. So first of all, to avoid breach, you have to make an action to protect yourself from breach. Also, we are not recommending to enter into any new debt relationship for the private people. We also highly recommend, and this is very important part, to record a breach. For example, if you are having any relationship with the other party, and you see that right now, due to circumstances or any other reason, there is a breach, you have to record it. Otherwise, you will not be able to protect yourself. Not right now during quarantine, during the process, during this let's say special circumstances, not for future. You don't have to lose this time. If we're talking about the contracts, from our perspective, the biggest and now the most confusing part is loan agreements, because a lot of people are staying here, are living here, and of course an important part of their life is loans, some dealing with the banks. So that's why during quarantine, during this time, you have a high possibility to, first of all, to terminate your loan contract, or to, for example, by making early payment, by reducing, of course, reducing the amount of the loan, I mean amount of the debt, because you can't decrease the amount of the loan, you already signed it. However, you can negotiate, you can discuss, you can make restructuring of your debts. And it's really important to understand, but you have to act in proper and right way. I'm mostly right now talking about individuals, because we had a lot of requests and a lot of questions in this part. For example, I have a loan, what I will do, I cannot pay, how I should deal with the bank, and 99% people, they are not checking their loan agreement. So only when they face some claims, they are properly checking the agreements, or at least reading it more carefully. So of course, loan agreements, they consist of a lot of conditions, but still the dealing with the bank should be following. Of course, you need to make clear what you want, because it's different than you want to make restructuring, or you want to terminate a contract, or you want to, for example, freeze, you want to hold the relationship for a while. It's different types of requests, and you have to be very clear and very frank in front of the bank what you want to do. All the requests, you have to make in writing, because I know that dealing you have to arrange by verbal communication, but any agreement, any settlement, any understanding that was reached through the verbal communication is not expressing a further obligation, or is not enough to secure yourself for future, because whatever you agreed, it doesn't matter that it will move on smoothly and you will be able to implement, for example, this reduction or this restructuring. So do it in a proper way. Make it both communication in verbal and in writing. And also, of course, if you are leaving a country right now, it doesn't matter that your loan agreement will be finished, it will be terminated. No, it doesn't mean it will be continuance until there will be a termination. Termination can be done or either by consent of the parties, or by their court order. So you have to do an active action in both ways. Also, of course, there is right now a temporary hold of checks. So we can say that there is some like release for people who might have security checks, etc. But it's not a must. It's just a possibility from our perspective. So about the real estate, it's also a very huge part and very important part, because we have to differentiate that there are old projects and we have some, for example, active claims. Maybe you have a court in the case, or a case in the court, or you have already some legal actions with the old projects. Maybe your case is in the committee. This is one story. If we're talking about the new projects, the things, for example, you sign a contract like last year and everything was going well. So what happens with these projects right now? Will it be some changes, or will it entitle the developer to make some changes? So it depends if you are having an old project or ongoing, let's say, new project. Your actions should be different. With all the active claims, we can't say that clause of force majeure might be implemented. No, there is already an active court procedures, and the case will keep going in the same direction. The case will not be on hold. The case will not be on. It will not be stuck. But due to our practice and our perspective, what we are seeing right now, of course, there were a lot of cases where the court postponed the hearings. It maybe depends on each particular case, also maybe it depends with the system, but still they are ongoing. So none of the cases should be stopped. If we are talking about like ongoing projects, if we are talking about agreements with the developer, and how you should act right now. So to be frank, the developer might use a clause of force majeure right now, or also, of course, you have to check your agreement. We can't say that it's for all, but in theory, yes. But any clause of force majeure should be used in the right way. So you can't depend only on the time, like within this time we had quarantine and we are using this clause. We can't do duties, we can't do an obligation. No, it doesn't work like this. You have to prove, you have to explain, you know, to the buyer. So if somebody of you is buying a project or is now dealing with developer, you should get an information or ask for it, or ask for clarification why exactly you are holding a project. Did you deal with the land department, if there is a permission, something like this? Because there are a regulation from the government, there are a regulation that are on administrative level. However, the developer should also implement this in a proper way and make announcement, make notification, serve it in a proper way. Otherwise, you can also use it in future. You can say that there was no notification, there was no information from the developer at that time. Of course, this is the time when you can also change the agreement as well. You can change some conditions, you can change some things in your contract, but of course, every dealing between you and the developer should be done in a proper way again. So everything should be in writing. I don't recommend, of course, to save a bunch of emails where you are asking questions, and in the end of the matter, all your agreement will be divided into hundreds of emails. It's also not correct. And after all, for example, your legal will be facing difficulties to use it in case you'll have any claims in the court or in the arbitration. But nevertheless, you have to make it in writing. You have to make it in a proper way, summarize everything and put it on the paper. Otherwise, any additional amendment or changes or termination, for example, will not be legal and valuable. So in case you are not having any changes from the developer, in the real estate relationship, you should like expect that the developer is not stopping his duties, so he should continue. If you are having any notification, of course, hold it. If it's not clear for you, it's very general, ask for clarification, so you will have understanding. Like the completion date is changed. Into which date it's changed? What is the expectation of the developer? What is the next terms? For example, you agree on extension. You agree about it. You understand that you should actually reach into some understanding with the developer. Okay, what will be the new terms? So put it on the paper. Otherwise, we also advise to keep all the records, so in future you will have a possibility to move on to the claim. If you are having any questions, I will also repeat myself. Please drop a message in the chat box, so I can just give you a reply, or I can see what you're interested, or maybe there is a need for some additional clarification. Okay, so we are moving on. We have also a huge scope of like weak parts, changes, influence on the personal relationship during the virus. And of course, it depends in which emirate exactly you are staying, but saying very general, if you are talking about whole UAE, of course, we can also divide on some relationships that are already ongoing. For example, I mean, there is an active claim, there was an execution, or there was an active claim in the court. Should it be stopped? Should it be on hold, or should it proceed? What about the execution part is also a very interesting question. And the second part is, what about the problems that that arise during the quarantine? What about some cases of divorce or alimony or custody? Can you register it? Can you go ahead with this, or should you wait? So it's also a very interesting question. Talking about the cases that are ongoing, so already registered, and for the personal status cases, of course, the registration is in two parts. So there is an obligatory mediation. You have to go to the family committee, and this is done not by the lawyers. This is always done by individuals personally, only by the personal attendants. And if we are talking about the other step, when the mediation doesn't work out, and you should go and register your case, this cases also should be ongoing right now. So there is no hold, there is no stop. Of course, in the courts, we will reach to the other section about the court procedure. There are some differences that we see during the quarantine and during this time right now. However, generally speaking, they should be ongoing. If we're talking about the new claims, and it was a very like huge conversation in all the media, social comments, like, can I register my case? Somebody is saying, no, you should wait. Somebody is saying, yes, you should register. So this information is very different. So if we are talking in general, it depends about the like urgency. It depends about necessity. So in every case, you should explain why exactly you need right now. For example, why you need divorce, or why you need a custody right now during the quarantine, why it's urgent right now. So this part, we should admit, is really important, and it influences if you how your case will be proceeded, how quickly you will get it. So if anybody of you, I hope so, no, but still, if anybody of you is facing some case in the personal status court, it is really highly necessary, and it is advised to describe and to explain the urgency and necessity. And of course, you should be careful, because in each emirate there are some details, especially about the procedure and like the way of presenting the information at the beginning of the case. So what about the execution? The execution should be ongoing, it should proceed, it should be active. So also, of course, there are different types of execution. So sometimes your debtor, this is the opponent, the other party, right, the opposite party. So sometimes he's willing to proceed with the execution of the judgment like this. He doesn't have any problem. He received the judgment, there is a court order, there is execution, he will go ahead. Sometimes your debtor will be stuck till the last moment, so you will face difficulties with forcing him to execute the judgment. These are also different stories. Maybe during quarantine you can face some difficulties with requests. Sometimes some requests can be a little bit on hold, sometimes you can get a refusal, but still you have to proceed, you have to continue, you should not give up. If anybody of you is having any questions in regards of the personal status, in regards of the previous topic that we discussed, please drop a message in the chat box, so I can give you a brief reply. Or maybe if you want to share questions later on, you are having an email in your invitation, so you can drop your question later on. And as I said in the beginning of our webinar today, the handout for the webinar will be shared with you. So if somebody is facing difficulties with the screen sharing, or you cannot see the presentation, then it will be sent to you shortly. So now we are coming to the next slide, and it's regarding labor, rent, and criminal relationship. Like we have so many types of relationship in UAE, and of course, I mean, it's general in every country. So we tried to differentiate the important and, as I said, weak parts, just to give you a brief how you should deal. Depends, you are having a problem in this matter, or you're not having a problem in this matter, but at least you will know how it should work out. So labor. Labor is a really like a tough problem right now, and I think it's one of the hugest part that was engaged during the virus, and it was a lot of changes implemented there. So we can at least give a brief, for example, about reduction, about termination, and annual leave. These are the hugest topics that were discussed, and also we are having a lot of questions, so that's why we wanted to give a brief. So if you are having a reduction of the salary, depends on which side you are acting. You are an employee or you are an employer. Also, it depends if you are working in the mainland or in the free zone. There was a regulation implemented from the UAE government entitling the employer to use a reduction of the salary, so in case it's necessary. And also there was an instruction that the reduction of the salary should be discussed with them employee, so he should be aware of what is the expectation of reduction. However, unfortunately, not everybody is implementing this right now. I mean, not in all companies. There is a frame of letter that you should agree with your labor, your worker, but also by the procedure, unfortunately, not everybody is using this. I can't say that if you are not using a form, you will have, as a company, you will have responsibility. You will face some fines. No, I'm not saying about this, but we are also expecting that there will be a lot of claims later on if the laborers will stay in the country. They will definitely, some of them, proceed with the claims. So the missing part, for example, there was no discussion, there was no agreement, there was no consent. This might be used in future. So if you are having your company, be careful with this. Just also secure yourself from different sides, so you will prevent. This is the last slide that we have, the last section, but prevention is also important. Right now, not everybody is concentrated on claims, but later on, definitely it will be a subject matter. Termination. So a lot of people face termination. A lot of companies decided to terminate people during their quarantine. Of course, because of different circumstances. So it depends on the reason also why the companies decided to terminate laborers, or maybe because it's shut down. It's a reason. It's a valid reason. But you have to also inform properly. You have to deal properly with your team, with the people. So we always advise to ensure, if, for example, you are on the side of the company, see and understand if you will be terminating somebody, you should fulfill all the general rules about termination. Notice period, for example, no notice, then there will be 1 month's compensation, gratuity, how many years the labor was with you. So all these things, should be present. It's important. Otherwise, this termination will not be legal. Annual leave. Annual leave is also an interesting part, and we should admit that a lot of people, they were facing annual leave. Also, some of them were facing sick leave, but depends on the sick leave and annual leave. These are different things. The medical conditions should be present. So if you're not having a medical list, if you're not having a prescription from the doctor, you can't have a sick leave. So you are not sick. If you are having an annual leave, maybe you decided to go to annual leave, but 99% right now people should go to annual leave. So here there should be a consent of the worker. This is also important part. Rent and lease contracts, these are huge sectors right now, also in quarantine. Rent is something that is short-term relationship in regards of the rent of premises, and lease, it's mostly commercial part. So it's a little bit later on in commercial things. So if we're talking about rent, the things that you should remember, that first of all, right now there is no eviction. I mean eviction by force. So you can't actually let somebody go away from the apartment, from premises by force. Right now it's impossible, so this thing is on hold. But it doesn't mean that you should not record, for example, non-payment or violation. Something is going on inside of apartment and something that is not allowed, or maybe also breaching of security regime, breaching of safety regime. It can be also a reason for consequent responsibility for the tenant. So each and everybody should be careful. If you are a landlord, if you're owner of apartment, be sure that the apartment is used in proper way right now. There is no sublease. It's a weak and important part right now. If you're not allowing any sublease, be careful. Payment. If you are not having a payment, serve a notice. Unfortunately, you should do it, even though you can't make eviction right now, but you have to have a notice. You have to have a legal proof that time there was no payment, so later on you can evict, but right now by force it's not possible. Also a very important question about a reduction of rent. A lot of people maybe heard that there was an instruction that all the people should try to make negotiation before they are filing any claim, any dispute, and you can make reduction, you can make decreasement of rent price, but it is only possible if there is a mutual agreement. So it's possible only if the people, they agree together. You can't force your landlord if he's not willing to change the price. This is not a reason that he should do it. He can't do it. That's why be careful when you are dealing about this part. Criminal liability, criminal responsibility, punishment. If this part changed or no in quarantine, we can say that because we have additional security and safety regime, There is something that is changed in the punishment, because we have a new types of fines. We have a fine for example, for breaking time regime. We have a fine for breaking and going out without a permission. I'm mostly right now talking about Dubai. So if you are leaving a house without a permission, you will gonna have a fine. It's more administrative part, but if you will continue, if you will make violation constantly, in the end of the matter, it might be some subject of the criminal responsibility. So you should be careful about this. Also, the other sides of administrative things, such as I don't know, some parts that people depends on their religion. Somebody is entitled to do, somebody is not entitled. So be careful, because right now everything is more recorded, everything is more observed. So criminal liability might be even higher within this time. What about the punishment, if there is an influence or no? Generally speaking, the criminal law is still the same, so we did not have any changes in this part. However, there are numbers of regulations about some particular things that face some changes, but punishment did not change. There are some just new types and new measures. Maybe sometimes in more cases that deportation might be used. So it's also something that makes impact on the criminal part in the country. If anybody of you is having any questions or maybe want to share a question after the webinar, please go ahead. You can drop a message right now in the chat box, or you might send it upon the webinar. If somebody of you is not having a presentation, can't see, if you have any difficulties, so please drop an email, or we will send you a handout upon the webinar. Now we will come to the point of commercial relationship. Commercial relationship is mostly a very major problem and major part right now, because a lot of companies, they had influence on the previous types of relationship that we discussed with you. So of course, but moreover, what about the relationship? What about the contracts that you had before the virus, before the quarantine, before this preventive measures? What will happen to them? How they will be executed? What about the rights of the parties in this kind of relationship? So we can make like a brief 4 parts that are that should be determined and should be reviewed in any company. So first of all, it's force majeure. How you can use it in which kind of relationship, in which contract, in which cases. Breach, what is the breach, what is the possible breach, and how to avoid it. Mutual agreements and negotiation, and of course, what is the protection for commercial relationship. So force majeure, of course, it might be used during quarantine, but it also highly depends on your agreement, on your obligation, on which side you are acting. You are a consumer, you are buyer, you are for example, a supplier, or you are service provider. It depends where you are. So you have to, of course, make a proper estimation of force majeure, and you should serve it properly. And nevertheless, each party should continue its obligation if there is no changes. So right now, saying briefly, this is not a reason why you should break an obligation. You should actually continue it. However, if you can't do it, you should prove it, and you should inform it in a proper way. Breach, of course, this time is a very high risk for breach. So a lot of companies, they faced a breach against them. some obligations were not executed. Sometimes you can't understand, for example, the company you are dealing to is open or closed, or what happened. Maybe there was some changes in the details, such as address, phone number. Maybe the notice that the office is closed was not served to you. So if you are having any failure from the other party, or you have numbers of parties, you should definitely fix a failure. Maybe you should act first. You can try to engage with the conversation with the other party, like please share the details. What is the procedure for you to work? What about the details? It's a very important and sensitive part, because some companies might change their details during this time, and you will not be able to do some legal actions in future. So be careful, take this information. Mutual agreements and negotiation. Of course, it's an option and a time for each party to make negotiation. And if you are facing any problem, it's of course highly recommended to negotiate. So you should talk, you should discuss if you're having any problems. Of course, it's also a possibility to make extension of time for the obligations, or for the execution of some duties. If you are having an active court claim, actually you should also, you can, if you need it, you can also use this part. You can, for example, ask the court, you are having some dispute about obligations, and you're going to fulfill it, but you need a time. You can also ask for it. It will be a valid and good reason. You can also change the terms. So if you want to change something, you see that you are interested in the execution. However, you cannot do it right now. You can do it in future. So you can also discuss it, put it on the paper, make it proper, make it summarized, and you can make some amendments, additional conditions. You can do it right now. It's also a possibility and a good point for every company to work on. Protection. So of course, you have a possibility, you have right to raise a claim. You have this right. It doesn't mean right now that you don't have a right to serve a notice. You don't have a right to raise a claim. No, it's a possibility, it's an option, and this action is present. And sometimes even we can say that the execution is quicker. We had a lot of settlements, and we think that the people who are interested, they can settle. This is the time right now to settle. So right now we're running out of time, but I will briefly tell you about the court procedure. So of course, if we're talking about the courts, we have a federal and we have local courts. Dubai court, before even the quarantine, before the COVID-19, had an online registration, and a lot of things they were already online, so you have a possibility to make an actions. But right now also there is additional changes for the hearings for this procedure, so the system is developing. It's becoming more possible for remote work, for remote claims, for all the remote things. So you are actually able to make online registration right now. It's possible. There are no stops on this. You can make again some remote announcement, including email, saying that right now the company, for example, is not physically present in the office. You want to do announcement by email, but the emails are still active because people, for example, working remotely. You have a proof about this. It's a good point. It's a good reason. Check actually if your case will be done by the So the judicial system is now fully online. It's a very good and very helpful part for the legal companies and for the people, for individuals, for companies to protect their right. The execution is also online. You can make an application, you can follow up with the execution. We have in the Dubai, we have also international courts, DIC, and their system was online before the virus, before the quarantine. However, right now, all the hearings without of stop, they are done remotely. Audio hearings is a very active point. Each hearing might be preceded by the audio conference. Everything is recorded. All the submission, the exchange of the documents, everything is online. So there is a full possibility to start the case, to continue the case till the end, till the judgment. And it can be done online. So here we have only positive things, and it entitles parties to secure their rights in case of violation, a full possibility to protect, to get a judgment in place, and to move on. Arbitration. Arbitration is an additional possibility for the parties if they want, if they agreed only to proceed with the judgment in the case. So if you are having a commercial relationship, if you are having, for example, contract for purchase of the property where there is an arbitration clause, and it's very often, it's a common thing here in UAE, you can actually go to arbitration. Of course, before filing, you can ensure and you can check how the procedure changed. However, for the all arbitration cases, there is a continuous work. Also, all the hearings and exchange of the parties, preliminary meeting, submission of the claim, defense, everything can be done by the email, so in electronic way. The hearing is also possibly can be by video or audio. Mostly I think it's by audio if somebody already heard and faced the arbitration. Right now it's very active, so you can go ahead with this. There is no stop. There is no there is a continuous work, so this part is really working very well. And during the virus, a lot of changes that make the remote work easier were implemented. Even you can actually, coming back to the slide, you can actually execute the award, you can start this procedure also remotely. So it's a very positive part, for example, for the individuals and especially for the companies to secure their right. I mean, starting from simple fixing of the failure, simple email, simple thing, simple legal notice, and further claim. It's everything is possible. Just you have to be accurate, and you have to do in a proper way. Take care about the details that you are having, and be careful with the details of the opponent, because if the details will be changed, it will also influence further procedures. Maybe it will extend your time, so you have to have everything in your hands. Future protection upon the quarantine, and it's our last part here today. What you actually should do to be sure that for future you are secure. And also what you should do to prepare yourself or prevent a claim. Or even from the legal part, we're always advising to prevent claims. You can negotiate, you can settle, you can put everything on the table, but the major advice is to have everything in your hands. It will make your position stronger, and your arguments more valuable. So if we're talking about the individuals, private people, notwithstanding about the type of their relationship, first of all, for all the individuals, avoid breaking a law. Keep all the records in case. in case there, in case there is any breach of rights against you, and react on the urgent basis. Quarantine, this time right now, it's not a reason that you should not react. It's a time for react. Raise complaint and try to reach a settlement if it's possible. And in case you have any agreement, keep the records in writing. Raise a claim if it's necessary and the settlement is not possible. So these actions will prevent you from violation and will ensure that you have your rights in place upon the quarantine. For commercial entities, for the companies, keep the communication with the contractual party. Continue communicating with every contractual party. Talk with them, engage them, follow up with them, and highly recommended exchange the details. Get all the records. Do your best to negotiate and solve. Notify about breach. If there is any single breach, notify about it in a proper way that is determined by your contract. If it's not determined by your contract, you should do it in accordance with the law, commercial law or a civil law. Possibility to sign amendment to change the terms to execute the obligation by both parties. You have a right to sign amendments, and this is also a time if you want to change any details, any terms, go ahead with this. Keep records and notices. File a claim if it's necessary and there is no settlement. First of all, with the main reason to prevent a possibility for the respondent, for the defendant, to avoid its responsibility. I mean by the debtor, who is the debtor in future. So if you will keep with these actions, you will prevent your company from possible breach, and also you will decrease a risk to have a claim against you, because every party is feeling weak right now, nowadays, and it's important to have everything in place, to have all the possible preventive measures to save your rights, of course. So we are coming to the end of our webinar, and just to make a conclusion, just to make a brief, first of all, due to latest changes and implementations, the remote work in the UAE, and I'm talking right now about the federal courts, local courts, arbitration and mediation centers. These changes, they provide a very big and like easy opportunity to protect your right to get a judgment process, and to do everything without of delay. Continuous work and renovation in the relationship, and updates, for example, in the implementation of the foreign judgments, awards, local judgments, allows to continue a work process, and also to adopt a system and updates to make preventive measures to raise the claims before, for example, the high risk or high necessity during quarantine and also after quarantine. And it is very advisable and very preferable to avoid a claim, to make negotiation, to reach an agreement before the trial. Of course, if you are having an active claim, you can't do anything. You can actually make negotiation even in the trial, even in the court case. It depends, and it varies. A lot of things might be in place. Maybe the settlement is impossible, but still you can try. Also, you have to be cooperative. In relation with the damages, right now, of course, we have to admit that especially labor, rent, family, commercial and civil type of relationship, they face a lot of damages, and to secure the rights, to make it possible to keep a normal way of work, normal life, you should make preventive measures, you should secure yourself, you should check, you should act, you should not wait when the quarantine will be finished and only after this you will start doing something. If you will not start doing all the necessary things right now, in the end of the matter you will lose, and it will be very difficult to protect yourself. 99% of cases are facing difficulties in the trial simply because of lack of evidence, lack of documents, some necessary things that should be in place when the parties were dealing, when the parties were still communicating, when they were ready to exchange some information. That's why we highly engage each of you, and of course advise to have everything in place. As I said in the beginning of our webinar, your agreement, your dealing with the opposite party should be done by proper way, and every email is something that can be used in your favor and against your favor. So be careful what you are writing, make yourself clear, make a proper communication with the opponent. If you have a determination in the contract, if you're a commercial company, if you have a determination how the notification, how the notice should be, follow it. If you don't have it, then make it proper in accordance with the law and your particular situation. We are coming to the end of our today's webinar. First of all, I hope each and everybody, each of you got useful information. Upon the webinar, you will have a possibility to share your opinion, your questions, to answer the questions that we are interested to know if the information that you got today was useful, if you are happy with it. Which kind of things you are interested in and what you want to know for future, so we will be able to serve you in the best way and keep yourself active. Thank you so much for your attention. This presentation was prepared by Mohammed Bani Hashim Advocates and Legal Consultants. If you have any questions, you can go ahead on our website. You can drop an email on our email. It will be also served in the emails, the invitation for the webinar, and also upon your survey. Our offices are located in Ajman and in Dubai. Please, if you have any questions, you can contact the numbers. We are still active, we are still working, so we are here with you. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope each and everybody is having safe time, and you are staying in your houses with your family. Ramadan Kareem for everybody of you as well. Take care, and hope to see you in our next webinars with MBH Advocates. Thank you so much.